Understand the Navigator app version property, why it outputs looks so messy, and why it shouldn't be trusted for modern development. In this example, we want to look at how you can read the browser version. And the property we are going to be looking at in this example is also another legacy property. Now, if you thought that the other Navigator identity properties were weird, the Navigator.app versions takes the cake. The purpose of it was that it was created to tell developers the exact version number of a visitor's browser. Think of it like the way the normal phones that we use have versions of operating system. If you are an Android user, you see something like Android 5.0, 6.0, 6.1, and so on and so forth. And if you are on an iOS, you also see that iOS operating system comes with versions. So it was the same thing like this that browsers use. All the modern browsers that we have all have version numbers. So, and that's because sometimes you will see that when you try to open your browser on your system, you will see something like Chrome just got updated, or your Mozilla is now up to date, your Firefox is now up to date, or whatever. And if you try to check that update, you always see that it comes with version, that is version number. So version number of browsers was the purpose of this legacy property. However, because browsers spent decades mimicking each other to bypass poorly written website blog, this property now returns a massive confusing jumble of text that usually starts with 5.0, even if you are using a browser version that is much more recent or higher in number. And you are going to see, for example, I'm using a modern Firefox, but inside it, you are going to see that the browser version is going to start with 5.0 and with alongside a jumbo text that is going to try to describe the version. So let's take a look at the example that demonstrates this legacy property. So let's move on into the script tag, and inside the script tag, I want to use the document.getElementById method. I passed in my ID, inner HTML equals to browser version is, then call on the Navigator object and passed in the property app version. And now, if you look at it, browser version is 5.0 Windows. Now, if you try to go into the settings of my browser, if you try to go into help session or something, so, and you try to check about Firefox, now look at it. You can see that this is 15.0 B10 or something. So what I'm basically trying to show here is that the current version of my browser is not 5.0, but because this is a legacy property, it will always return 5.0, although it's correct with this part because I'm on Windows system. Rather. But if you try the same example of Chrome or any other browser, it's still going to, show this kind of information because it's a legacy property. And the reason why it is always like this is because for modern browser compatibility, most of these property are hard-coded in order to return the same thing regardless of the environment or the browser where you are trying to run it. So this example grabs the raw version string from the browser environment and dumps the entire long text block onto the screen inside the paragraph, as you can see in this example. Now, let's look at what exactly is happening with what we have here. Number one is that the Navigator.app version, which is the Navigator object alongside the app version property, queries the browser for its version information. So instead of a jumbo text, you can see that this particular property now has been improved. Instead of returning a lot of other jumble text alongside these windows indicating the operating system. It just returns the number, the version number, and then it returns the operating system alongside it. So in this case, it did not even return a complex string that is filled with historical placeholder. Maybe for clarity, let's try another browser and see how this looks like in another browser. So I want to see if we can pull up another browser. Let me try. Oh, I can't right now. Okay. Nevertheless, since I cannot try to pull up another browser, what I'm basically going to ask you to do is that this same example, try it in Chrome, or if you have any other web browser, maybe Edge, Safari by Apple, or any other modern browser, even Opera Mini, you can try it and see what it's going to return to you. Because in my own case, those jumble texts are no longer shown. Instead, it is just showing me a clean version with my operating system. So this navigator.app version property queries the browser for its version information, and then it returns a string that demonstrates the version and then the operating system. The document does get element by ID or demo self targets the empty div that we have here and inject the introductory text, that is this text here, alongside the version string that is gotten from the query by this particular aspect of our code. And once those are gotten, then it uses the inner.html to write to the DOM and give us a display that you can see on the screen. Now, here are a few key takeaways from this lesson. Number one, the navigator.app version, like I said, is duplicated and highly unreliable for finding out the actual version number of a user's browser. You can see that when I try to open the app menu of my Firefox, what is there is not just 5.0, so it is a higher version, but yet this property is still returning 5.0 because it's an encoded value, and that is how to work on all other browsers if you try it. Number two is that browsers froze these properties decades ago so that legacy enterprise websites wouldn't instantly crash when a new browser came out. So another usefulness of this legacy property is because of legacy enterprise website, so as to prevent them from crashing when a new browser version or a new browser came out. That was the reason for this particular property that we've been talking about in this example.